So to start, we're going to show our new biomes that we have in 8.0. Yeah, so Keegan, if you want to just kind of talk us through this stuff.
Sure. Yeah, so 8.0 is going to be the start of a big rollout of a whole revamp of pretty much everything about Eco's natural world. And the sort of basis of that is world generation and how worlds are put together. And then the obvious extension of that is all the content inside the world, which is structured into a collection of biomes. So we're basically revamping, how it all fits together and how it all works, and adding a ton of new content in that process. So right now, Walker's in some grasslands, and one thing you'll notice right away is that we have some much taller grass. One of the goals with grasslands is that we want to have part of it get the feeling of like a prairie. A lot of our biomes are influenced or inspired by North American biomes. So tallgrass prairie is a really great inspiration for an ecosystem. So we're going for that. There's going to be the switchgrass. There will also be a big blue stem species of grass. So we're really looking at each biome individually and fleshing it out with new plants and new animals and new trees. And what you'll notice as well is new block types. So we're going to be reshuffling and revamping a lot of the block types that are in eco as well. And one of the big things that will tie into eventually is mining. So there won't just be generic stone anymore. We'll actually have different types of rock, and different types of ore will be hosted in their host rocks and located based on those rocks. And that'll be a thing that appears per biome. So you'll have different biomes with different resources, which will help encourage exploration. And this patch 8.0 is the big start of that process of getting all that in game. So, yeah, we have a lot of new stuff to show. These rivers, you'll notice, are a lot better looking. One of the things we're improving in world generation is lakes and rivers. The rivers now actually go right up to the bank. They can still form in a valley, but then they'll also have their banks. So it should look a lot better than the weird river canyon we had before.
Big things we wanted to do with this update was just have a much different feeling place in the environment. So as you're moving from location to location, the biomes feel really different. Plants and animals that you find there are going to be really different. So they're like setting up a town on one side of the world versus the other side of the world. You're going to have to farm very different things. There's going to be minerals and resources that are only accessible in certain areas. And that just has all these knock-on effects to the rest of the game too. So like right now in the current release, you can get most ores. They're kind of spread out, but they're not too hard to get in terms of location. Whereas this, you'll have more localized places where, oh, you can only get this particular plant in this location. Or you can only get this particular wood or this mineral. And so that just makes transport that much more important. That like you're going to want to have a little village, over by this particular spot that lets you transport to this other, the rest of the world. Uh, so yeah, everything we do with Eco, we like connect it into the whole system of it. So it's a new big expansion to our ecology system, but it also affects the economy, where you're deciding where to build roads, where to transport, how to trade, how you take advantage of these resources. So that's one of the things I like most about the game is how much the systems like overlap with each other. You change something like this, and it affects something as far away as like loans from the government or whatever, and all kinds of things like that. We should check out the new like routes we have for decoration. So this is the forest biome, yeah.
Yeah. So and then one thing that's kind of interesting is we're actually splitting up some biomes into multiple sub-biomes. So the forest, for instance, will have a cold forest and a warm forest. Cold forest will be like conifer forest where you find fir trees. The warm forest will be more broadleaf. But with each new biome and sub-biome, we're updating it so that they each have their own topsoils. So like warm biome has its own topsoil. And what you're seeing here is just the decorations that we're starting to add to the block type where they become cliffs or whatever. They can have their own cool decoration.
This is the new pipe features we've added to 8.0. So the idea with this is that plumbing is going to be a new feature of the game. It's going to be this kind of community project that you need to do with other people in your village to set up access to water and taking away wastes from your crafting projects, from your like home items. So this is a debug thing we've spawned in here, but these are what the pipes look like. And they're mechanically powered, so they will take from a water source, which right now I've just spawned some water here to make it easy to view. And they'll be taken up into the pump and then pushed into the pump network. So you can see these pumps here are supplying water to a series of houses. So here you can see the pipes go underground and they come up inside of this workshop. I'm gonna have to fly to get in there. So we're still setting up a lot of this, so some of this is debug, but right now we just have a test workbench that's rigged up to take water. And if you open up that workbench, here's our little test recipe where you can see that it needs 300 water blocks and it's slowly going up. So if you click the pipes component there, you can see if you mouse over this, it tells you that water is incoming from these different pumps. And if you mouse over the other one, you see that it's outputting waste at this particular rate. So pretty much anything that takes water is also going to generate wastewater, which becomes sewage, and that will pollute your environment. But you can deal with it in different ways also. So if you want to fly through a little more, Walker, we can show. So this same pump network, actually, if you want to fly underground, you can kind of see the plumbing under there. Yeah, so all the plumbing has been rigged underground. So this will be a big like community project where you have, you know, the central water source, and you need to like bring pipes to all your buildings, collaborate with each other, figure out property rights for these kind of things can be tricky. So yeah, it's something that's like a very collaborative feature. So we spawned 4 houses here. They're all taking water from the same plumbing source and all outputting the same sewage line. So this sewage line here is going off. Yeah, so there's the 4th one, and then it goes off to this water filter. So this is a water filter here. And this is kind of a late tier thing. So in the beginnings, you basically just have to pump your sewage somewhere and accept that it's going to pollute it. But as you start getting these filters, you can start filtering this water. So if you open that up, you can see that this one is opposite. Its input is sewage, and its output is water. If you go to the status tab, so the way this works is as it's accepting water, as it accepts sewage, it'll start creating compost blocks at a certain rate. So every few seconds another compost block gets generated. And those are stuck into this stockpile. So right now we don't have art for those yet, something Keegan's looking at. So they just look like crates. But if you open up that stockpile, so these ones that are templated, you can see are the compost blocks that are being generated from the wastewater. So you're kind of taking this waste product and turning it into something that you'll be able to use for like farming and fertilizer. So that's another thing that you know, you can kind of omit the filtering step and it'll just end up creating a lot of pollution in your environment. But you can also do these extra kind of community projects that will turn it into a positive. Keegan, do you want to talk a little bit about the latest biome stuff? Maybe do some fly arounds, Walker?
Sure. Yeah, I can talk a bit about that. We've just finally gotten most of our new rock types implemented in the game. A lot of them are still going to be in progress for this first 8.0 patch, but I think people will be pretty excited to see some of the ones that are more fleshed out to start, like limestone. So yeah, we've added a whole new slew of rock types. We've added sandstone, limestone are the 2 ones that are sort of closest to done, and then we've also added so granite is the other main default, most common rock type that's going to be throughout the world. But we're also going to be having basalt, which I believe that's, I think that might be what Walker's looking at, or it's probably just dark, it's probably granite. There was some limestone over there to your right there. Yeah, there's a little patch of it there. There's also some sandstone next to it. Right here is probably a border between biomes, which I can use to talk about the fact that lots of different rock types will be sort of more or less prevalent based on the biome type. So I tried to, in general, sort of associate different rock types with their depositional environments. So like there's more sandstone in the desert, because that's where the sand is. Same with the beaches. And limestone, which pretty much, in eco anyways, tends to form mostly from marine organisms, is all going to be located around the coast, with some exceptions. And yeah, you should fly around more and see if you can find any big outcrops of something other than granite. Or maybe go to a desert if you can find one of those. Oh yeah, looks like you're
in the opposite direction.
Yeah, there you go. And so one of the other things is the rock types will also be cool the more we do with expanding them as mineral resources in the game, because each rock source is going to be kind of like a host for different resources, or each rock block rather. So as you can see there's sandstone, and then there's also that more darkly banded sandstone, and that's actually the new iron ore. So iron ore is now going to be gotten pretty much exclusively for now from sandstone. In the real world, something like 60% of iron ore comes from a thing called banded iron formation, which is all a sedimentary deposit from a sort of a one-time event in Earth's history that happened over a few million years. So a lot of the stuff we're adding with geology and eco is inspired by real life, just like the biomes are inspired by a lot of North, Central, and South American biomes that exist in reality. So it's going to add a lot to the richness of the world to have these new rock types as places where you have more localized resources, both localized more to the biomes and also more physically localized within, even just individual outcrops and things like that, having sort of certain deposits contained within them. So, yeah, right now the granite is going to be the host to gold and copper to start. As we go, we can add more types of ore deposits in different kinds of locations and create. I think the funnest and coolest thing will be that the more things we have like this, the more really cool associations we can create. There's like obvious things like sand and sandstone, putting the sandstone in the desert, but there's a lot more subtle things that can really make the world feel more interesting and rich, and sort of also, hopefully inspire people to learn about some of the really fascinating complexity in real life geology and things like that. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun to start implementing this stuff. I think you did see some bighorn sheep in the distance there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, there's one. So this is a new animal in 8.0, a bighorn sheep, and it's cool. The sandstone in the game right now, and also this bighorn sheep are inspired by the southwest parts of the United States. So last year I took a trip to Zion. My girlfriend was working as a park ranger in Zion National Park, and when I was there I saw bighorn sheep and just these incredible sandstone cliffs. So that's kind of where some of the real life inspiration is coming from.